Well, I was out here in the shop and I remembered a few videos ago I was working on some parts for a gentleman in Texas that wanted a 4th axis that was similar to mine, and I had run into a snag with the tubing being not very well shaped on the inside, kind of bowed in on 2 sides to the value of about 60 thousandths. I felt like it was just too far, bowed in just too far for me to use that tubing. Personally, I wouldn't have used it on anything for myself, so I try to do things in that manner. If I don't feel like I would be satisfied with it, then I strive for better, especially for someone else. I try to do as good a job as I possibly can, and that tubing just was not going to make me happy. I had run into this issue a couple of times before, so you're never really guaranteed what kind of condition the sides of this tubing is going to be when you order it. So I figured the best way for me to at least have straight sides on the inside would be to fabricate a piece of tubing. So that's what I did. I ended up buying some pieces of material that were to the correct internal size. Then I created a fixture and welded those pieces together. It all worked pretty good, except for in the very beginning when I was trying to weld the tubing or weld the pieces together to create the tubing. While it was still on the fixture, I was having a tremendous amount of trouble getting the aluminum hot enough to weld, which is a common problem, especially with thicker aluminum. I figured my problem lay into my fixture. It was made out of a solid piece of aluminum and I just couldn't get it hot enough. I even had a small propane torch blowing flame on it continually while I was trying to weld it, and I just couldn't get it hot enough for it to satisfy me that my weld was being consistent in penetration. I got it stuck together good enough in 2 or 3 places so that I could get it off of the fixture. And once I done that, then I was only working with the thickness of the pieces. Even with that, I still had to preheat the piece in order to retain enough heat so that I could weld and get good penetration with my weld. Once I accomplished this, I got all the pieces welded together and got the corners built out so that they would form good corners. I then proceeded to start machining it, and I wish, and I'm going to try to look into this and see if I can find something or if I have to build something, but I wish I could show the welding side of it so that you could see what goes on, you know, when you weld something together, and you could see that process, you could see the entire process. But I had almost forgotten that I had mentioned this on a previous video, so I just dug the camera out real quick and figured I'd shoot a real quick video and show what was going on. I've just about got this piece trued up on the outside. It came out pretty good for a first piece. I would probably do a couple of things different. I would not strive so hard as to get extra material to machine. That would help me out with the heat distribution and trying to get, you know, a consistent heat and a quicker heat on the part. So I would probably go with thinner stock the next time. And another thing I would probably do, I would order something that was, say, just a little bit wider than what I needed, and I would actually machine to the size that I wanted, because the material that I had got for this was just a little bit undersized. When you weld things, they have a tendency to shrink or draw. Aluminum is not as bad as many of the other materials. There are some materials that will draw or shrink or whatever, however you want to say it, a full 32nd of an inch per weld. When you fabricate things, you have to allow for that shrinkage. If not, you're going to end up quite a bit undersized than what you had shot for in the beginning. With my material being undersized already, and everybody knows when you buy a piece of extrusion, the corners aren't particularly clean. They're rounded on the corners. I'm not sure what the purpose of that is, other than it makes it easier to handle, I guess, easier on the handler. But it does have a tendency, if you're gonna weld something together, it gives you a lot more possibilities of being undersized when you get your part finished. That being said, I'll show you what I'm talking about on this piece of stock that I have here. This is a piece of stock. As you can see, the corners are not perfectly square. They're rounded. I'll see if I can zoom in a little bit here on this edge of this part so you can see what I'm saying. This might be too far. Back out just a hair. Okay, I think you can see that there now. You can see how it's got a slight radius there on the corners, and if you're going to put another piece right to that edge there, well, the imaginary point is gone. So what's going to happen is your pieces are going to overlap, and you're going to lose a few thousandths of an inch, and then when it draws, you're going to lose even more. So if you notice on the end here where it was cut, other than where it got deburred, it's a clean edge, so it would make together a lot better there. You would still come out undersized, but it wouldn't be quite as bad as the radius corners here. Put two pieces together there, you're going to probably going to lose 15 or 20 thousandths right off the bat, just on one side. So with all of that taken into account, I would most likely order a piece that was a little oversized and then machine it back. That way I could leave a little extra material, 15-20 thousandths at least on the width, because I came out just a little under on my inside dimension that I shot for, even having it around the fixture. Now if I could have left it on the fixture to weld, it probably wouldn't have drawn. But there's another problem with that. I may not have ever gotten that thing off of that fixture, for the simple reason that it would have drawn so tight on that fixture that I just couldn't get it. I couldn't have gotten it off. That's another thing that I thought about while I was doing that. I had put some shim stock in to try to allow for some of the shrinkage that was going to occur. Being as it was the first time I had ever fabricated a piece of tubing that I was going to try to nail down the inside dimension on it, I kind of missed my shim thickness. I should have went a little thicker on my shim and just dealt with if there was any penetration on the inside through that gap, then I would have just had to have broached it out or something, just taking care of that after I had gotten everything welded together. And after the fact, all the trouble that I went through and everything, I came out just maybe 20 thousandths under on my inside dimension, which I didn't figure was too terrible. Came out fairly decent, pretty square on the inside. The sides are at least straight. They're not bowed in real bad. They're not bowed in at all, actually. It measured clean. It's just, it might be just a little bit out of square. Not quite trapezoid, but just not perfect. One side came out just a little bit out of kilter there, maybe 10 or 15 thousandths on one side. It measures a little over on one side than it does the other. I don't think that was too bad for a fabricated piece of tubing. I believe it'll be a lot easier to work with. Anyway, like I said, I was machining on it, and happened to think, well, I had said that I was going to see what I could come up with on fabricating a piece of tubing because of the nature of the piece that I had to work with. So I figured I would share with you guys what I had come up with. Finally, in the end, you can see over here on this side here, this is where the weld was, and it should run in about, being as I've machined on it now for a while, this weld area, about 1/4 of an inch from this edge in, is the weld area. It came out really good. I'm going to tell you, it's not perfect. Some sides are better than others, and I think that was where I was having so much trouble keeping the part hot enough. And there are some little places I've uncovered while machining that were just little pinholes. They're not bad, and it's not going to affect how this piece performs. It's gonna hold up just fine. It's gonna hold together fine. It's not going to break apart or anything like that, because pretty much all of the rest of the weld is very good. It as you can see, it machined very nice. It's come out, if I can get it to focus, might not be able to get real close here, but too many objects for it to focus on, I think. Trying to get that edge to pull in, and it's looking at, there you go. So that's about as close as I can get to it and still stay focused. So you can see, I'll get something with some detail on it so you can tell. You can pretty much see all of the knurling in that telescopic gauge there. There's no blemish over there where the weld is at all. So I'm really liking the way it's came out so far, and the event of it being just a little bit out of a little bit undersized on the inside, I can deal with that on the part that goes inside of it, so that's not that much of an issue. Overall, I think it came out really nice. I think it's going to work just fine. So I just thought I'd share with you guys where I had gotten with it. I have the piece here. This happens to be the piece of aluminum that I was using to square it, to get it squared up with. You can see I machined a little bit off of it just to get it flat so that my pieces wouldn't sit there and rock on it. And once I did that, then I ground off these corners so that there would be a little bit of space where the two pieces of material met, and the welding gas could go inside of that void area there and kind of be like a backing, be like a purging. It would purge out all the oxygen behind it, and that way it does a real clean job on the inside. So that's what I was working with to square this tubing up to begin with, and it worked out pretty well, but it just was too much of a chunk of aluminum to get enough heat in it to weld it. Just figured I would share with you on that, and that way you wouldn't just see the piece. I'll try to show a little bit of the machining on this piece along with the rest of the pieces. I have machined all this stuff one time before, and there are videos of it, and I didn't really do a whole lot of filming of it because I figured it would be boring. It would be the same thing over and over and over again. So, but I'll share. This is the piece that goes inside of that piece. Had done all the machining on it. I only have to thread these holes here. This is the mounting plate for the drive. Now I'll have to come back and just skim cut along this edge here, because this piece came out exactly 3.5 by 3.5. So I'm gonna have to machine a little off of it so that it'll fit inside this piece of tubing, because it came out a little undersized on the inside. So but that's not too much of a job. I'll just set up on it, put it in the machine and just set up on it and just shave a little off each side. That way it'll slide in pretty decent. 10/1000ths would be pretty snug. I mean, it needs to be close, but maybe not that close. So it came out, the part came out to size. So if my tubing had came out to size, it would have just been a, you know, put together kind of thing there. But this piece came out to size, so this piece is going to have to be shaved off a little bit in order for it to fit. So that's the only issue that I've got with that. All the rest of the pieces should fit up fine. Since I had mentioned this piece, I just figured I would drop it in and show a little bit of it. So when I get everything going on the rest of the machining of it, I may show it, but it'll be basically the same machining that I did on the 4th axis parts for my 4th axis. You could check out those videos and it would be the very same thing. The only difference in this part is that I had to fabricate the tubing in order to get the quality inside dimensions versus using the bowed in extruded tubing. Okay guys, well, I just thought I'd share that with you and let you see what I had came up with, and I'm going to see if I can work on getting some kind of device or some kind of welding helmet for my camera, and that way I can show some of that. That would be kind of interesting, I think. Okay guys, till next time, thanks for watching the video, and thumbs up if you like it, and subscribers are welcome.